make God our favorite, if we make the Word our favorite, amazing things will happen. God says, if you want to be prosperous everywhere that you go, if you want everything that you touch turn to gold, and you just love my Word, love my presence, love me, walk with me, spend time with me, hang out with me, and you just watch and see your life go from nothing to something in a matter of days. So, and when we had to remind ourselves all the time, remind yourself, be strong, be very courageous. We saw it like 3 or 4 times just in that one chapter. Be strong, be very courageous. God constantly told him, do not be afraid. I am with you. Just as I was with Moses, I'm going to be with you. Powerful, right? Like just as I took Moses from tending some sheep out in the desert. Nobody knew who he was. And he goes and he changes an entire pagan nation, the most powerful nation, the most rich nation on the earth. Moses goes from walking around the desert with a bunch of sheep to changing the most powerful, rich nation on the planet. Awesome. And God says, just as I was with Moses and did those amazing miracles, I'm going to be the same way with you, Joshua. Don't you worry. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Have faith. Have courage. Go in my name. Go in my power. And then we looked at, in Psalms, and this was really fun. God said, if you were to try to tell back to me, or if you were to try to tell somebody else all the things that I have planned for you, you wouldn't be able to, right? His plans for us cannot be recounted or retold. That's amazing. Like, he has daydreamed about you and thought up things for you to do before the creation of the world that if you were to sit down and try to list them all out, you would never get to the end of the list, because of all the things that God has in store for you. Amazing, right? And we also just briefly talked about how God's thoughts, just his thoughts about us and towards us, outnumber the grains of sand on the seashore. And if you go to the beach and pick up one handful of sand, you couldn't even count all those grains just in your one hand. But God says, all the sand on the seashore is my thoughts towards you. That's how much I love you. That's how much I care about you. And that's how much I think about you. So awesome, powerful stuff. So this week, we're going to look at a few things. Let's turn quickly into Zechariah 10, 3 through 5. And Zechariah is towards the very end of the Old Testament, past Jeremiah, past Ezekiel, past Psalms, right before the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi. So just turn to the very end of the Old Testament, Malachi, and then go backwards one book, and you should be in Zechariah, if my calculations are correct. The first book before Malachi, at the very end of the Old Testament, Zechariah chapter 10. And I'm going to read out of the Contemporary English Version, kind of a different version, but a very fun and easy to read version. This was actually wrote, as far as I understand, this was written back in the 1950s. And this was written to teach English to children in third world countries. So it was written in very plain, simple, easy to read, and it's very understandable, very good. If you have a hard time understanding the Bible, grab yourself a copy of the Contemporary English Version and use it as a supplemental guide in your Bible study, and it will transform your life. Zechariah chapter 10, verse 3 through 5. I'm going to start halfway through verse 3. It says this. God says, I care for my people, the nation of Judah, and I will change the flock of sheep into charging war horses. From this flock will come leaders who will be strong like cornerstones and tent pegs and weapons of war. They will join in the fighting, and together they will trample their enemies like mud. They will fight, because I, the Lord, will be on their side, and they will crush the enemy cavalry. Awesome. Love it. God says, I'm going to take these people, they're like sheep right now, and I'm going to change them from being confused and weak and plump and everything else that sheep are, and I'm going to make them into charging war horses. Isn't that amazing? Just like that, God's going to do it in your life. You may feel right now, God, I'm weak, I'm confused, I have no idea what's going on with my life, I have no idea what the future holds. God says, I'm going to take that and I'm going to make you into a charging war horse. Powerful, sure of himself, unflinching, undaunted, able to charge at guns and weapons and soldiers without even thinking twice about it. And that's what a war horse does. A war horse will run, and it doesn't matter what's in front of it, doesn't matter what's going on, it's just going to go because it's told to go and it's trained to go. It's trained not to be afraid. It's trained to go into certain death and not stop. Because that's what it's trained to do. And that's God. God says, I'm going to do that for my people. I'm going to take these weak, confused, prone to wandering, prone to getting lost, prone to falling into holes and wells and getting lost and broken ankles and all stuff. I'm going to take that type of person, that type of individual, and I'm going to make them into a powerful war horse.